I'm Nima I'm a senior data scientist at Scotiabank. So what I want to present today is correspondent banking network and the application of network analysis and operation research. And I want to discuss a little bit mathematics behind the corresponding banking. I can say for the first time, the Scotiabank was, that was 5 years ago. We started a project to explore the topology of the network of corresponding banking network because of to track the suspicious and illicit activities, at least associated to the specific bank, in this case, Scotiabank. So if you want to send money to cross-border out of the country, definitely you have to deal with the correspondent banking. Correspondent banking is a network of the banks, relationship between the banks. So your money could go through a sequence of the banks across the world to send your money to the specific receiver. So that's why corresponding bank is getting more and more important because of the sanctions, because of the suspicious activity, and so on. So corresponding banking is providing the financial services through intermediate banks. So, and we have a corresponding banking network, or CB network from now, I'm saying, is a network of financial institutions, of FIs, in different jurisdictions or regions, providing cross-border payment services for customers through different channels, like a SWIFT, FedWire, and so on. So in this network, the banks are communicating to each other through the Vostro Nostro accounts. I mean, having Vostro Nostro accounts is having account, one bank has an account in another bank. This is the way the bank communicated to each other. So because of the sanctions, growing the network is very dangerous. Because recently, if you back to 10 years ago, and each bank was responsible for their customer, direct customer. But because of the recent sanctions and fines that I can't show you the numbers, so it's not enough to say, I know my customer. The banks should know the customer of customers. That's why any information at the transaction level is not important at that moment. You have to create the corresponding networks, and you should take care of the risk across your network to make sure that there is no any suspicious or any illicit activities in the network. Currently is the responsibility of the financial institutions. So we have a different structure of the corresponding networks. Traditional one. So this is to keep it simple for now. I'm focused on the traditional one, but we have a nested corresponding relationships. We have a payable through or pass through relationships. So, but depends on the type of the correspondent, the topology of the network could be completely different. That's why, for now, to keep this simple, I just get the traditional one. Traditional one means you as a client go to your respondent bank, and respondent bank communicates with other banks as a correspondent. So and easily you can detect that we are talking about the DAG, directed graph, from now. So there is a risk, as I mentioned, risk of using this network by criminal organization for launder money, for tourist groups to facilitate the financial services, financing their activities. If you look at the numbers, for example, if you look at the violation tracker, just in financial industry, there was a penalty. The total penalty since 2000 was close to $388 billion across the world. That's for the 7 or close to 8,000 records. So it's huge. I mean, the different banks are fined because of the violating anti-money laundering regulations. So if you look at the website's violation tracker, is a lot. I mean, it's a lot of money, a lot of fine, and it's growing actually. So Anti-money laundering, so that means you want to convert dirty money to clean money. So money laundering has three main stages: placement, layering, and integration. Placement is how funds from illegal activities are placed into the financial systems. Layering is creating complex layer of transactions to hide the original source of ownership of the funds. And integration allows illicit proceeds to be brought back into the financial systems and appear to be clean or legitimate funds. So placement, layering, and integration are three main stages of the money laundering. So let me give you some examples. So the first example is a real one. Is a drug shipments from Colombia, Mexico to Montreal, and then moving cash from Montreal to Toronto and distribute the cash between Toronto FX or foreign exchange businesses. And then this is a placement phase. The placement phase is, and then they transact through the FX businesses. They do some transaction in other countries like Lebanon or Middle East for layering. What is a layering? Layering is using the shell banks. Shell banks means the banks on the paper only. There is no physical place. Using real financial institutions in the countries that do not honor the sanctions, like a Lebanon, like a Turkey, so on. And then using other things like luxury goods, real estate, cryptocurrency, charity, credit card fraud, anything. And then this is a layering phase, and the last phase is integration. Back money to the systems, and then sending money from the Middle East to the US to pay the commission to complete the transactions. And that's going to be repeated again and again. So another example is, the people living in Canada, the car theft is on the rise. So there are a lot of things it is in the news every day. The gray market of expert vehicles, So this is a trade-based money laundering, or TBML. What is this? Is stolen cars are quickly packed into the shipping containers in the port of Montreal and shipped to the West Africa using fake documentation, like a misinvoicing as a second-hand cars, for example, And shipping cash from West Africa to Lebanon, safeguarded by Hezbollah security. And then placement, deposit cash to Lebanese Canadian bank or other phase, and then send money integration phase. Wire transferring to the US, Canada through the CB networks to pay the commissions and extend the businesses. At the middle of the way, European drug cartels use this network to facilitate the sending money in this case, So that's the real world. At this moment, CB network is in danger. That's why the banks are very, very careful and opening huge projects, most of them very high confidential, to detect or track the illicit activities. So what's the problem? We have a complexity here. Before going too deep into the math, we have a lot of complexity. First of all, we just have a partial information. Only integration stage can be detected by the bank because rest of the loop is out of the control, So AML is a time-consuming process. You need a watching list. That's the current practice. The current practice is that every bank has an AML team. AML team, they are responsible to watch and flag using deep learning models, using ML, machine learning methods, whatever, or even experts and things, to create a watch list. But the problem is that this watch list is growing fast and exponentially, It's very hard to control. AML process requires different data types and sources, structured data, unstructured data, whatever. So that's why this part is one of the good research work for using the LLMs at the moment. And human is part of that's one of the most complex phase. Humans are social beings and criminals involving a network of individuals. The complexity of AML and FX regulation in different international regions also help criminals to launder to launder the money. And the last one is that Canada is not good. Canada, based on the report, Canadian institutions fail to detect money laundering more than 99% of the time. And estimated of the magnitude of dirty money laundered in Canada each year is between 100 or 130 billion dollars per year. Is a lot. So, what is the research contribution here? What's the relationship with the network analysis? So, the point is we have only partial of the information. So, the first step is the solution we provided in the bank is the first step we have to optimize the network. What does it mean to optimize the network? I mean, we have to optimally make a decision to onboard, offboard, or restrict the relationship in the network. Adding node to the network or remove the node, or restriction means remove the edges from the network. That's simply saying, we have to optimize. But this is by objective optimization problem. So we should make a trade-off between value and risk. Value is that we don't want to lose the customer, because if you go to the bank and say I want to send money to country X, and the bank cannot say, sorry, we don't have a relationship at that country. Go to the other bank, go to the competitor. It doesn't work. We don't want to use the clients, but at the same time, we want to reduce the risk of the bank. So that's why for the first time, we try to understand the topology of the CB networks, because it's a directed graph. Actually, we are talking about the directed graph. And we have to define some evaluation criteria that hide in the payment data to measure the value of the banks, And using this, all the stuff we want to provide high visibility for proactive strategy in the CB network. So that's why we use a data set of the bank that's close to 3 million transactions per day. And we use the 1 year or 6 months, doesn't matter, history to create the network. So if you look at the data is each record is something like this one. Senders go to the respondent bank, in this case, Scotiabank, and the money going to a bunch of intermediate banks and then go to the receiver. So this is the transaction data. We use this data with some fuzzy matching and use some LLMs to clean the text, because there are a lot, as I mentioned, there's a structure on such a data, to convert it to the network, a directed network between the senders, correspondent banks, intermediate banks, again, a correspondent receiver, and then receivers. So what's the difference between this new project and the current practice? Using the network, we can add more features to the whatever machine learning algorithms we want to use to detect the illicit activities or track activities. I mean, creating the network from the transactions give us more visibility, because as I mentioned, the customer of customers is important here, and you have to be careful about the direction of the money, flow of the money, and how many clients is accessible from a specific node or entity in the network. And another complexity of the network is that we don't talk about the parent level, we are talking about the branch level. Because in some countries, single branch can communicate with other bank without getting the verification from the parent. This is not the case in the Canada, but in other countries, individual branches can communicate with the cross-border banks without informing the parent or headquarters. This is another complexity. That's why we had to create the network at the branch level. So what we found is, so let's pass some definitions, because we don't have time. I can't explain everything. So what the findings? We found that the CB network has a specific features we call K-accessible feature. K-accessible feature is a set of banks exist in the CB network, each of which has access to, on average, K other banks with a negligible standard deviation. That's the differential is very close to K-clan or P-clan graph. Could be equivalent, but it's not. I mean, it's not necessary. K accessible is not necessarily the same as P-clan, but they are very close. So what we found is that an optimized CB network should be a K-accessible graph with the standard deviation approaching 0. And using this features, we realized that we can detect the illicit activities as abnormal or anomaly detection in the network. I mean, every entity with the high standard deviation compared to the other entities could go through the monitoring, because they are using unnecessary resources in the network to send money. That's the whole point, you know. So that's why we use this activity, the K-accessible feature, to detect suspicious. I don't want to say a suspicious transaction. Suspicious component in the network. And you can imagine having refreshing the data every year or every 6 months, your network going to be changed. You have a dynamic network every 6 months. And when you calculate the K value and the standard deviation, each node exceeding a specific threshold detected as a suspicious component and send it to AML team for more exploration. So I'm trying to make everything MP3. Sorry guys. That's why I'm passing a lot of stuff behind the scene. But this sigma, that's a standard deviation, represent a macro structure of the network. So for example, if the sigma is close to 0, the corresponding network should be something like this one. If the sigma is greater than 0, this is your corresponding network. You have in this case, the network has a huge SCC, a strongly connected component that most of the suspicious activities is doing in this one. So is lying in this part. Make the long story short, to detect, we have to optimize the network first and then detect the suspicious component in the network. And using this one, we are reduce the size of search region or search space in the network. So yes, that's to get this stuff we use. Oh, sorry. Sorry guys. So we got some help from operational research. We try to formalize the network to prove some theorems. For example, one of the theorem we prove is that each minimal K accessible digraph D with K greater than half of the number of the nodes has smallest vertex accessibility variance and at least one SCC, a strongly connected component of size K plus 1. So using this, actually you cannot solve this model in the larger scale, but we solve it in a smaller scales to understand what is the optimal solution looks like and what we should expect from the bigger CB network to optimize it, you know. So yes, this is another theory for about the P-clan. In a P-clan digraph, the network optimization problem that minimizing the number of edges is equivalent with maximizing the number of distance of length P in the network. So, and work we done has other business impacts. So, for example, faster transaction monitoring and decision making from weeks to hours. Before this project, if the bank had a plan to restrict their offboarding the other banks in the network, that was a month of the progress of the months and a lot of activities. But we reduced months and weeks to the hours, saving in man-hour, Visibility on interbank relationships. A portion of the entire Citibank can be shown over different layers. So this is providing more visibility. For example, you can show you can show the CV network in different layers, like a geographical, counterparty, or risk level. And rapid response to new risk identifying the network. And since January 2020, Scotiabank closed more than 200 Vostro accounts across the world without affecting the clients. That's a lot. I mean, if you consider the weeks or months of the work per multiple by 200s, going to be a lot of work and man hours. So we save a lot. Thank you. Any question?